on the actor side of it, I will say this. I was in our first. I guess we did it. The first pass through was about a couple weeks, right?
For 2 weeks of recording.
Yeah, 2 weeks of recording. I was physically exhausted. I don't remember. I mean, I actually doing the show. It is physically exhausted because Homer goes through so many emotions and there's lots of yelling and running. But there was like so much, not only just in terms of the yelling and the being demonstrative and all that, but all of the emotion that you had to reach to do this, especially this movie and the scope of it. I mean, it's the hardest I've ever worked on a movie.
Well, you really had to work to yell at your wife when you got home.
Yeah, I know.
It was really a strain.
I couldn't get up enough strength to yell at her or abuse her at any.
Also, when you record, you physically do a lot of. I mean, you really are acting it with your whole body.
You do. You act. I like to stand. I like to infuse it with as much energy as possible, and was really. If it really was an arduous task, but and also I think, and Yardley can. You can chime in, and this what we really did work with Al and especially Jim and Al and Mike and Matt were primarily the people who directed with David occasionally sitting in about reaching the emotional truth of each of the scenes, and which was really gratifying to do, and we try to do that on the show, but this with not as much scope as the movie. And like we were talking about, I did, saw how much Julie worked to reach the emotional level and saying goodbye to Homer on the videotape and trying it different ways. It actually was a really gratifying to be able to stretch our acting muscles on this one.
And she always said, if I can do another one to make it better, I will.
Yeah.
Every time.
And I was like, I didn't know, and like I said, we didn't know, we weren't witness to how things were rewritten and redone. So all we knew was that we had to go in and whatever it needed, we just wanted to make sure we held up our end of it to make it as good as possible.
I think that about says it all.
It's only because that's what you told me to say.
See how clever I am. It's all true. I do. I actually felt like the work on this film and working with Jim in particular, that it was a lot like the early days of the TV show. When it would take 8 hours to record one episode, and now we have it down to such a science it takes about 4. But to go that deep, that is. I remember, for instance, when we went to New York to
I was
record,
talking about it today.
Oh, good. Dustin Hoffman, for the Mr. Bergstrom episode, and how that session was. Also incredibly physically exhausting, as Dan has said, but it was so enormously cathartic, and it was so to think that you could infuse animation with that much heart and soul, I think would have been a revelation to most anyone who's ever watched a cartoon. If there had been any casual observers, they wouldn't think that you could go through that much to infuse that much sort of behind the scenes in a way, because what they see is the picture, but then it is, of course, this collaboration, this great marriage of the writing and the animation and the acting. So that was really gratifying, as Dan says, to be able to, and to be expected to go that deep, and to be able to take the time to do that was not something that we generally get on the TV show. Mostly, I think it is a function of time. We only have 22 minutes, and the film could be as long as it needed to be to tell the story. And so that's a luxury that we don't generally have on a weekly basis.
I don't think before The Simpsons there was ever a cartoon on television that went for emotion. I mean, like, Snagglepuss was a great actor.
And I do think that's one of the things that sets us apart, that also makes the show appeal on so many levels, that we're not afraid to go there.
Yep.
And I've always said that Lisa Simpson is one of my favorite characters of all time to have played. It's been an enormous honor, really, a great privilege. She's such a great girl, and I do regard her in this funny way as being a part of me and separate from me. When I watch her on TV and now on the screen, she seems to exist very much in her own right, and I am so delighted by her. And so it's a great... It's a tremendous feeling of satisfaction and very humbling to see that and know that I had something to do with that. I really loved it.
It was a very big deal in the film that she have a happy ending. That this romance works a little bit.
Right, for once.
Yeah, he was always saying, every time on the show you give me a boyfriend, you take him away.
Yeah.
You take everything away.
Well, that's what you get for being
that.
so smart.
She's great. I will say, though, Jim in particular would make us... what you hear in your head is so specific, and you make us go through it so many times that there would always be a dip in the self-confidence, like, oh crap, I'm not ever going to get this. This is awful. I'm just not getting this. And then somehow you would break through that because you just keep going, because you don't, of course, ever want them to smell your fear that way. And you just keep going, and then you would get it. And that, of course, you go through this mini struggle every single time with almost each and every line, and exhausting but exhilarating at the same time. I loved it.
Well, Jim, I've watched you direct, and it seems to me that it's not even so much that you may have something specific, but I always felt that it was an exploration on the scene.
Yeah, well, the specific. That's what I was thinking with the Julie thing. It's like you can't give her a specific. You don't know what it should be. It just feels like something new should happen, and it never worked. We went back patching together parts of a long monologue, and that's always not great, And,
Well, part of what I think is the story difficulty. It's very hard to believe Marge is really leaving Homer, just after 400 episodes. And so, writing-wise, too, it was very hard for us to go, we really want to, slam you in the gut with this moment.
Well, we never had a moment like this on the show where it was this much time that we spent on an emotional moment for Marge, or Marge never had a speech this long on the show. And I think that's one of the challenges that Julie had and we had, like getting the right performance from her. It was a new territory.
Yeah, she did it so beautifully, though. She really, Julie always exhibits a willingness to dig deep that's second to none.
Well, and the spirit of the work is good. I mean, that's what's
Yes.
great. When everybody's there, it shows up for the
right?
work. It's sort of great.
No, it's incredibly gratifying. It's a great moment, and as always, I feel like to see, because I'm only privy to one part of it, to the acting part of it, and to the writing, but to see even as the writing changes and then as the animation comes in, then to see it all come together, it's always like opening a great big gift, because we don't see the TV show until it airs, of course, and so because everything is it's so labor intensive for everybody other than us, and so it's a tremendous, fantastic, like, oh my God, that sense of awe that we have, I think we share with the audience in a unique way.
Well, from us too, whenever something doesn't work, we always say it's the writing. We you guys are perfect, and if it's, no, I mean seriously, it's not. You guys are the character, so we always.
I
say
usually
that.
blame the animators.
Those guys.
Can't we do anything right? Oh, wait, hey, that was directed to me.
And on top of which, like I said, it has, unlike doing 22 minutes, and the scope of it, especially Marge leaving Homer, and then at the very end, them coming back together. And I got really touched by, even a little choked up when Homer and Marge got back together.
Oh, good.
And it's like you don't necessarily always have that time on the TV show.
Yep.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have the luxury in the TV show, of even not necessarily having a real strong story point. It's just held up by a gag, or you can always go to a kind of goofy B plot to. But in this particular, you have to. That's what amazed me the most in watching it, is I saw so much great funny stuff just go out, and I didn't miss it. I didn't say, I go, well, I would have liked to have seen it, but it didn't detract from the film at all. I did follow the story. It kept me interested. It held me. And the emotional part was really the anchor to the whole thing.
Well, I
was
think a lot of
interesting-
the heart and soul, I think you'll all agree, came from Burger King and 7-Eleven. They really added quite a bit. Samsung, too. I mean,
Samsung, yes.
I don't want to sell them short.
Actually, Marge's action figure doesn't have the big scene down yet. Should we keep looking at the
And
movie?
now the conclusion of the Simpson movie.